how can people who are always very hard on themselves learn to build up their self-esteem a little bit more?
I don't know if self-esteem is the answer. I don't think it's bad to be hard on yourself, as long as you also celebrate when the victories happen. But so many people will tell you, I have poor self-esteem because when I was a kid, people said this to me and that to me. And it's convenient that we remember those things and not the positive things that also occur, obviously. But I think it's more important is to realize that self-esteem is earned. It's only earned by you with yourself. You're not going to get self-esteem because everybody praises you. Someone can tell you your whole life that you're brilliant, you're a genius, you're beautiful, you're handsome, and you not believe it. Someone can tell you you're a piece of crap and you're never going to become anything. And there's a part of you can say, I'll show you, as many people have, and then they develop drive out of it, right? So it's really, self-esteem comes from doing incredibly difficult things where you pushed yourself. It's not virtue signaling. It's not telling people about it. It's what you know inside your soul is true. And the more you do things that are incredibly difficult, and especially things that are meaningful, meaning they're not just about yourself, the higher that esteem would be. I think the most important thing for self-esteem is to find something you care about more than yourself. As long as you're in your own head, the nature of the mind is reductionism, right? Good, bad, right, wrong, all those types of things. Of course, life is much more, many different hues than that. And so when you find something you care about, whether it's your kids or whether it's something, your job, your career, whether it's a mission you have, that's something you want to bring to the world, nonprofit, it doesn't matter what it is. If you find something you care about more than you won't be thinking about yourself all the time, and all your bullshit self-esteem shit just goes out the window. I mean, it's just, when I hear it, it's just so mamby-pamby BS. You can have crappy self-esteem and achieve a hell of a lot. Now, the real question is, what do you want? And I think if you want an extraordinary life, which my definition of that is life on your terms. Like, what's my idea? It might be different than yours completely. Some people, it's 3 beautiful children, a white picket fence. Some people, it's building a multi-billion-dollar business. Somebody else, it's writing poetry, right? So instead of looking for somebody else, it's like, okay, what do you really want from your life? And aligning yourself with moving forward towards what you really want. And I think if you can do that in a way that also you feel serving others simultaneously, there's a sense of meaning in life that can't be replaced by self-esteem or praise or compliments or being nice to yourself. And I don't think it's bad to be tough on yourself. I'm pretty tough on myself, to be honest with you. But I'm much better at celebrating now. And I also realize being overly tough on yourself usually comes by making comparisons that don't make sense. Compared to somebody else's life that has a totally different path, a totally different experience. We all develop in different stages and different things. We all want different things. You get to look back and say, you judge yourself too soon. And I can tell you a dozen stories like that with me. So I was so hard on myself. But eventually you wake up and say, it's good to be strong with yourself, but beating yourself up just lowers your energy. And when your energy gets lower, you produce less, right? You don't have the same level of joy. You don't have the impact that you want to have, nor do you have the excitement that you really want to have. So I look at it as something that it's worth earning your own self-esteem, but it's really not the secret. The secret is find something else you obsess about more than yourself, and you'll have a level of energy that will compel you over the long term. You can engineer your life to have more happiness, but I think the real challenge is thinking so hardly about being taken seriously just represents your fears, right? It's like, I think spiritual development, when people talk about spiritual, not religious development, spiritual development is the level of comfort you can have with just being your real self. And I think that's not an easy task because we all are trying to be something, but we already are that something we're trying to be. That doesn't mean you can't be better, but it's like accepting and appreciating what you really are. And instead of projecting, something else, takes a lot of pain out of your body, takes a lot of wasted energy out. It gets a lot of fears to just disappear. And I don't have an easy path for that. I think it's the hero's journey. What is it? Your life is ordinary and everything seems fine, and then something hits you, and it's the call to adventure. It doesn't feel like a call. It feels like somebody in your family's got cancer. Or it feels like, COVID and somebody shut down your business, or some issue that's happening in your relationship with your kids. But if you take the call and you go on the journey, you're going to meet some new friends. You're going to find some new mentors. You're going to battle with internal things within you and external things. But if you keep going, you're going to eventually slay your dragons and you come out the hero of your own life, and you have something to share that isn't bullshit. It's not something you read somewhere. It's something you've lived.
Something you want.
And everybody can feel you've lived it because it's a different level of ownership, And then, by the way, as soon as you do that, it happens again. You're called on another journey. You have a new level of challenge that you need to go on. It just never ends, but it makes life really, really beautiful.
One of the things that I've been hearing you talk about a lot recently that seems to tie into this is the difference in life between when you focus on things that are wrong and when you focus on things that are right. And I think a lot of people have managed to achieve quite a bit of success by avoiding pitfalls. You present them with something they can say, well, that's wrong and that's going to be an issue and we need to make sure that that's sorted there. But as you've said, the things that you focus on seem to appear more frequently in your life. And if you've justified to yourself and if you've built up this habit, this stack of evidence that it's useful for me to focus on where potential pitfalls may be and make sure that I can avoid them. So just dig into that difference between focusing on what's right versus focusing on what's wrong when it comes to your trajectory in life.
I think it's important to realize wherever focus goes, energy flows. It's corny, but it's true, right? In fact, maybe an easier way of saying it is we don't experience life. None of us do. We experience the life we focus on. So in any moment, what's wrong is always available. So is what's right. So it's not about being positive. It's about being intelligent. Right? When you're in a totally negative state and the world's going to end and there are people like believing that in the next 12 years, the entire environment's going to collapse and they won't have a child, you got to look at the impact of what you're believing. And you got to look at and say, where's my focus going? I can always be upset about something. I can always find something to be joyous or at least grateful for, which leads to joy. And I think it's having that, learning to discipline your disappointments. Not allow them to grow and to move on and to use whatever life has given you. But to me, it's like, I think there's 3 decisions that people make every moment of their life. Now, I'm not saying they make them consciously. If you make them unconsciously, you have the same patterns over and over again. And usually they're not good ones, right? Sometimes they're good, but not usually. And I learned these really because I had an experience when I was 11 years old. I was my 4th father, and he got fired, and we had no money and no food. We were always poor, but we wouldn't have starved. We had saltine crackers and peanut butter, right? But when everybody else around you was having a big Thanksgiving dinner, it was pretty depressing. And my mom and dad were saying things to each other that once you say them, you can't take them back. And I have a younger brother, 5 years younger, and a younger sister, 7 years younger. So I felt like the parent almost. I'm trying to protect them. I'm only 11 years old. And what changed my life is this bang on the door. I go open the door and there's this guy, big guy with groceries in both hands. And he had a pot on the ground with an uncooked turkey. And he looks at me and says, "Is your father here?" And I'm like, just one moment. I'm just like, this to me was like Christmas, right? This is the greatest thing. It's going to stop the fighting. It's going to be incredible. So I go to my father and I say, Dad, there's somebody at the door for you. And he's yelling at my mom through the closed door that she slammed on him. And he goes, "You answer." I said, "I did. It's for you." He goes, "Who is it?" I said, "I don't know." They said, "They got to talk to you," right? And I had this level of excitement, like little boy excitement, like this is going to be the greatest thing. And my dad opens the door, and I'll never forget the look on his face. He got angry, which shocked me. And he said to the man, "We don't accept charity," before the guy even said anything. And he went to slam the door, and the guy had leaned in slightly, so it hit his shoulder, and it bounced off of him, which made my dad even madder. And then he said, he goes, sir, I'm just the delivery guy. Somebody knows you're having a tough time. Everyone has a tough time, and they just want you to have a great Thanksgiving with your family." My father says, "We don't accept charity." He goes to slam it again. But I think because he leaned in, his foot came in. Now it hit his foot and bounced open again. It's just like, now I got fear run through my body because I know my father, right? And my father looks at him, and the guy looks at him and says something. I thought my father was going to punch him in the face. He didn't do it mean. He had a softness in his face, and he said, "Sir," he saw me, and he said, "Don't make your family suffer because of your ego." And the veins of my father's side of his neck were like this. He's beet red. I thought for sure he was going to punch the guy. And then all of a sudden his shoulders dropped, like defeated. He took the groceries, he slammed them on the ground, slammed the door, didn't even pick up the turkey, and didn't say thank you or anything. And shortly after that, he left our family, which to me at the time was the worst experience of my life, I thought. And so I was kind of obsessed with trying to figure out why. And I didn't figure it out for a couple of years. I had versions of it in my head, but now I use it in my life every day. And so I submit it to your viewers as well. These are the 3 decisions that I think everyone makes every moment. First, you're doing it right now. What are you going to focus on? You're going to be focusing on my story I'm telling you. You're going to be focusing on the next question you're going to ask. You're going to be focusing on how your stomach feels if you've not eaten. There's a million things you could focus on, literally. But we don't experience life. We experience the part of life we focus on. And so the bottom line is, I know my father and I had a different experience because we had different focuses that day. I was focused on his food. What a concept. This is cool. He was focused on that he had not taken care of his family. And I know that because he said it about 20 times under his breath, and my mother echoed it, of course. The second decision, though, the minute you focus on something, your brain has to decide, what does it mean? And meaning is what creates emotion, and emotion is where your life is, right? And so the quality of your life is the quality of your emotions. If you got $1 billion and every day you're pissed off and angry, your life's quality is called pissed off and angry. If you got 3 beautiful children, a husband or wife you love, but you worry all the time, your life is worry. So his focus and then his meaning, that was the worst part. The meaning he gave it was that he was worthless and didn't belong here. And that usually leads to the third decision, which is, what are you going to do? And look, if the meaning is something happens, you say this person is dissing me, disrespecting me, or is this person challenging me, or is this person coaching me, or is this person loving me? If you think they're dissing you, you're going to have a very different emotional reaction than if you think they're coaching you or loving you. And then, of course, that's going to change what decision you make. Because if you're angry, you're going to make a different decision than if you're playful or generous or whatever the case may be. So those 3 decisions control our lives.